Hey folks, it's John Kraska, EveryLibrary, the EveryLibrary Institute. Thank you for coming to EveryLibrary Live again. It is great fun to be able to have these kinds of conversations with our vast network of people who love libraries, who like reading, who might not really like reading themselves, but they think that other people should have access to books. I mean, it's what we do here at EveryLibrary. We're the National Political Action Committee for Libraries. We work on library funding initiatives around the country. We work on problems and challenges for public libraries and school libraries and academic libraries as well, and opportunities. We really look at libraries as being a place of great opportunity for students, for folks in higher ed, and for Americans from all walks of life who want to get something from their library. We tend to talk about the noble things that libraries do, like, helping people get their first, best, or next job, find their paths forward, transforming their lives and all that. And you know what I like to use my library for personally? Reading stuff that's good. The reason that we're doing the summer reading focus right now, this summer reads focus, is to meet some new people, some new authors to you perhaps, that are having some good books that are just going to be good to read. That's the whole point, isn't it? All right, so we've got three wonderful people for today's conversation that I want to bring in and introduce you to: Andrea Bartz, Susanna Kwan, Darrow Farr. We're talking today across Penguin Random House's list of upcoming books. Each of them has something new coming out, and it's very exciting to me as somebody who enjoys the publisher or the author-publisher library reader connection to be able to put you all together with these wonderful people today. Each of these books is about characters who are in moments when the world kind of cracks open for them. It's about grief or revolution or unexpected connections. And we want to talk today about the shifting moments of identity and reality that I think make for excellent summer reads. So, all right, my work as your host today includes formal introductions. Let me read your bios. Andrea, you can wave at the crowd while I do yours. Andrea Bartz is a journalist and New York Times bestselling author of We Were Never Here, which was a Reese's Book Club pick, The Spare Room, and The Herd. Her work has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, Marie Claire, Vogue, and other major outlets. And she's held editorial positions at Glamour, Psychology Today, and Self. Her next book, The Last Ferry Out, is coming out. Andrea, when again?
It is coming out on May 20th. So kicking off the summer reading season.
Oh, what a treat. What an absolute treat. Thanks for being with us for this. So Susanna Kwan, you can wave. Susanna Kwan is an artist and writer from San Francisco. Awake in the Floating City, her lyrical debut novel, imagines a post-climate crisis San Francisco where memory, care, and art intertwine in a world slowly being reclaimed by the sea. Susanna, it's terrifying to meet you. Hi. Oh, I wasn't sure if you were going to say anything. You're good. So, and then Darrow Farr is a Salvadoran-American writer and author of The Bombshell, her explosive debut novel. She was a Stegner Fellow in fiction at Stanford University and holds an MFA from the Michener Center for Writers at the University of Texas. Her work explores youth, radicalization, identity, and the fierce urgency of personal and political transformation. Darrow, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Before we start talking about everybody's books real quick, I want to check in with you about the Stegner Fellowship. I just want to mention that the best book that I never want to read again was Crossing to Safety by Walt Stegner. And it was one of those books that just punched me right in the face. Congratulations on that fellowship.
Thank you. That is such a thing where you're just like, this was amazing, and I absolutely never want to re-enter this headspace ever again.
No, absolutely. So, all right, cool. So we agreed before about talking to Andrea first. Andrea, Andy, hi. Last Ferry Out. This is your fifth book?
Yes, this is my fifth thriller.
Mm-hmm. That's so exciting. Can you talk about it just for a moment with our listeners and our watchers today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about this one. So The Last Ferry Out is about a woman who travels to the tropical island where her fiance died a few months earlier, sort of hoping to get closure. And she falls in with this group of really enchanting and sort of enigmatic expats there. But the more she gets to know them, the more she begins to suspect that accidental death might not have been so accidental, and even scarier, the killer might still be on the island. So it's a vacation story. It's hopefully, fun and exciting and kind of a puzzle box, but it's also about grief and relationships and found family, and kind of explores all this stuff that hopefully makes it a perfect summer read.
Oh, it sounds like it. So how do you, as a writer, balance that kind of puzzle box, that uncovering secrets, but still have that emotional interest, intimacy of? I mean, this woman's going back to find out what happened to her fiance. I mean, how do you balance those when the character's both driven by loss, but also by kind of an obsession?
Yeah, I think for me, the character comes first, and I write without an outline. I start with sort of a premise, which is basically what I just described to you. And then I start kind of following right after her and seeing what she would do and seeing who she meets, and watching her explore this island. So for me, the sort of twists and turns come up organically because she's getting to know these other people. I know that everyone has secrets. That's what intrigued me about expats. I know that they all have something they're running away from, or something they're seeking, some reason that they sort of decided to forsake their families and the lives they were born into and everything else. But I didn't personally, as the author, know what they were, just like my main character didn't know either. And so as I was writing too, I realized, wait, I want to hear from some of the expats. And so those became kind of standalone chapters. And I thought, I also want to understand more of what happened on the trip when that fiance was here. So then I started adding chapters from her perspective. So I wrote the whole thing in sort of like a chaotic way, and ended up with chapters all over the place from all different narrators and perspectives. And then once I had it all, it was actually pretty fun for me. I mean, I say fun now, maybe frustrating at the time, to put the puzzle pieces into the right order so that you as a reader are sort of having the bombshells detonate at exactly the right moment for your understanding to kind of, link together like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because the focus on character and the focus on discovery of character, and yet the location there, the island, Isla Coel, is it?
Yes.
Yeah,
The
it's very atmospheric in the book. I mean, it's almost whenever anybody says, "Oh, the place is a character," New York City was a character in the book. That island is a character in your book. I mean, is it based on a real place for you?
So it's based on a few different influences. I knew I wanted this sort of island setting that felt very isolated, because that is inherently scary and sort of ups the stakes for me. Once, if you miss that last ferry out, to be trapped somewhere with people is kind of scary. And I also liked the idea that this is a pretty sparsely populated island that has these beautiful cliffs and these crazy waves. And there's this, nature preserve on it and a bio bay. There was all these fun elements to play with, but something a little bit scary too, where it's sort of like, what's actually scarier, like the people on this island or the nature, the elements? And in my case, I had the idea for the book after I spent the month of February 2020, which was great timing on my part. I had no idea, but I spent the month of February 2020 traveling in Mexico solo, mostly on the West Coast. And I just met expats everywhere I went. And they were so friendly and so welcoming, but also very intriguing. Like they all had sort of different reasons for being there, and they weren't always super clear about their pasts or what had drawn them away from their home countries. So that was what got the wheels turning. And then I went to Isla Obosh near Cancun for a friend's wedding. And that's an island that is so beautiful, but sort of exclusively dedicated to tourism there, and some would say over tourism. And so that was an element I wanted to play with this Isla Colel, where it used to be a bustling tourist town, and then the one big resort closed down, and now it's sort of in not exactly ruins, but recovering from that, a different kind of place. And then finally, my partner and I have spent about 2 to 4 weeks in Puerto Rico every winter. We both hate the cold, and so we've just escaped down there to work remotely. And obviously that's not part of Mexico. It's a very different place, but we discovered some amazing areas and hikes that have like ruins of old complexes. One was like a boys sort of live-in juvie center, like all of these different old kind of decrepit buildings that seem like they have so much history, and this beautiful nature sort of next to the strip malls and the people living there and the car traffic. And so there was just a lot of elements I wanted to pull together into this fictional island.
That's fantastic. I was in, my wife and I went to Isla Holbush 1.5 million years ago before, and haven't been back since, but it's got to be gorgeous still. And that actually really snaps a lot into focus for me, because it does have that sort of last ferry out kind of quality to it. The sun goes down and you're there. You're not
there.
leaving. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the characters in this book, I'd love to louche around the west coast of Mexico in my retirement as an expat. That'd be one of my life goals, But what you're also exploring here is a psychological conversation, and somebody who is both mourning a loss, but also trying not to unravel in the process. I mean, what are your readers going to be expecting to have with meeting your main character?
Yeah. So I also, as I said, got to know this main character sort of as I was writing her. And I knew that she had sort of idealized this relationship in her mind because it ended so suddenly, because her partner died, in a tragic accident while they were apart, the day before she was supposed to fly to Mexico and join her, which makes it even more sort of heartbreaking. But I knew that every relationship, when you're actually deep into it, isn't perfect. And there's things that, can be dynamics that can be worked on or could be improved. And so it was sort of fun for me to have this main character, Abby, explore the relationship as she's trying to uncover what her partner was really doing there, why her partner was really there. No spoilers, but her sort of stated reason is not exactly the truth or not the entire story. And for that realization to sort of help with both her grief and also her personal evolution and her personal development and how she's going to approach relationships going forward. And I knew I needed all these other characters on the island to sort of play different roles in helping her realize different things and have things snap into focus. At the same time, I mentioned there's dual narrators. We also are cutting back and forth to her partner Esther's time on the island. And I wanted Esther to also, for, the sake of narrative satisfaction, to go through her own journey of realization. And so they both sort of, from different catalysts and in different ways, begin to put together what is working about the relationship and what's not, and what that says sort of about themselves and their own maybe, tendencies or coping mechanisms that are a little bit unhealthy. And I kind of braided those two things together so that they're both having revelations, hopefully in a way that's like kind of satisfying to read as you move through the story, and they both are sort of working on their own puzzles.
Oh, I think that's really fantastic. The late May 2025, last ferry out. Andy, I'm going to bring you back in a few minutes for a little bit of crosstalk after we get to hang out with Susanna and Darrow too, okay?
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Susanna, hi. Awake in the Floating City. Can you take our watchers, our listeners through what Awake in the Floating City is all about? Because I got some questions for you.
Sure. I just got my first copy here.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. So the book takes place in a future version of San Francisco that is flooded from years and years of rain, and there aren't a whole lot of people left, but those who are still living there have kind of moved up into a rooftop existence. And it follows two characters. One of them is Bo. She's an artist. She's lost her mother. Her friends and family don't live in the city anymore, so she's pretty isolated. And she's about to leave to join her family who live in Canada, and they're saying, it's safer here. You're going to have a better life. You got to get out of San Francisco. And so she's ready to go. But it turns out she's actually not ready. She's only ever known this place as her home. And she gets this letter from a woman who lives in her building. She's 130 years old. She is slowing down and needs some help. And Bo kind of needs an excuse to stick around. So she becomes a caregiver for Mia. And the book is about the year they spend together, getting to know each other. And Bo is also reconnecting with her art practice and embarks on a project with Mia's help.
It's not a quiet book, but there is a stillness to it because the location of it is so intimate between those two people. The idea of this intergenerational friendship, the world is falling apart around them. They've got different timelines, but there's a deeply intertwined level of care between these two people. I think is quite wonderful to explore.
Yeah, thank you for noticing all of that. You're right. It's these two characters. They're mostly in this little studio apartment for the duration of the book. And, they would never actually meet in real life. Their generations don't exist in our reality together. But I really wanted to explore the ways that we are all impacting each other and to make those connections visible. And I think with still getting used to talking about the book. I think with the stillness that you're talking about, I wanted there to be a lot of patience in the book. These relationships of caregiving that all of us are familiar with in some form are really about showing up, paying attention to somebody's most essential needs. And with Bo, she's in a really difficult part in her life. She's facing a big decision. With Mia, she's coming to the end of her life. And so, their time together is really about being present, and not so much about, a lot of near future books are about escaping a disaster or some kind of other urgent situation. And I wanted the focus here to be about attention and just that process of getting to know someone slowly.
Well, so as I was working on questions for you, I wrote down phrases like the world is falling apart or the land is rapidly disappearing. I mean, this is, and yet, how do you write around, if I can use the term ruin, how do you write around ruin without losing sight of that hope and that connection that's the core of the relationship between your two main characters?
Yeah, the question of hope. So I think the biggest question for me when I was writing this book, and it took a long time to figure out what that was, but I realized, as a third generation San Francisco resident, I was watching the city just, neighborhoods are turning over, things are changing so rapidly, like even in the last couple of years, and the place that I know so well would just become unrecognizable. And I was also noticing, as all of us do, older generations were disappearing. When my grandmother died 12 years ago, she was my last living grandparent. And I just thought, oh my God, she's taking this entire world with her. I don't have time to access those stories. And so much of what her generation did, their lives created this city. So I wanted to find a way to hold on to those snippets of memory. I had to invent a lot of it. Some of it came from research. And then I was also watching my own mother aging and realizing, I wouldn't have her anymore at some point. So there was really this sense of like impending loss that I was sitting with. And so we have this kind of ruined version of the city, but really I was crowding it with all of these other versions of the city that I was uncovering in my own research that the characters were showing me through their relationship. So I'm hoping it isn't a totally doomed world for readers to step into. And I think that the hope there is really about, Bo is a character she belongs to the generation after me. And she, like, this book is asking a question. What is the city going to be? What is the world going to be for children who are growing up in the world that we are creating for them? What are the next generations going to inherit from the decisions we're making today?
Well, the title itself, Awake in the Floating City, folks, which is available at bookstores near you towards the end of May 2025. The awake part of Awake in the Floating City, I mean, the intentionality of being awake. The conversations around art and memory, the conversations between preservation and disappearance that's part of this book. I mean, the use of awake in the title, I think, means something.
It absolutely does. I think it's about attention and about being present. There were so many other titles that were under consideration. I had a list of like 200 at one point. But I think that word really captures this sense of, even as the world is crumbling around us, even as our hearts are breaking, even as we are, facing the unknown, we can show up and keep our eyes open and look at the details of the world and try to hold on to them, because the opposite is missing out on that completely.
I think that's fantastic. Susanna, thanks for sharing with me about that book. About Awake in the Floating City. Let me come back to you and Andy in a moment after we get a little time with Darrow too. So Darrow, hi.
Hi.
You're very kind to be part of this conversation today, and for waiting so long. We're some fascinating colleagues here, though.
I was about to say, no, I've really enjoyed hearing about these books, and I can't wait to pick them up.
Yeah. So I want to talk about The Bombshell, which is your debut and forthcoming. When can readers find it out there?
May 27th.
That is a nice looking cover, by the way.
I'm so happy with it. Colin Weber is the person who designed it, and I think he did an incredible job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the pen, like eye blind.
No, it's really cool. And Susanna, yours is too, don't get me wrong. But so can you take our listeners, our watchers, through what The Bombshell is all about?
So The Bombshell is a story of 17-year-old Séverine Guimard. She is the daughter of a French politician father and an American heiress mother. And it's 1993, and her dad has just been named the prefect of Corsica. So he ships the whole family down there from Paris, and Séverine is not happy about this. She is bored, she feels isolated and lonely, and she just cannot wait to graduate lycée so that she can go off to become this big Hollywood actress, which is not only her dream, she knows in her bones that she is meant for celebrity. But before that can happen, she is kidnapped by this trio of Corsican militant separatists. She is whisked off into the remote interior of the island and held for this ransom. But negotiations for the ransom fall through, so they are all stuck with each other. So her captors decide to try to re-educate her. They're feeding her Fanon and Marx, talking to her about their plight as Corsicans. And her plan in the meantime is to try to charm her kidnappers into granting her freedom. So both end up actually succeeding to some extent. She ends up joining their cell. And so one reason is because she really does begin to sympathize with their cause, but she also sees a shortcut to stardom. And what follows is a summer of destruction. There's a media frenzy, there's some romantic entanglements, and possibly a near revolution.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that your main character, who's pretty fierce, rather a little flawed,
That's right.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea that the narrative arc for that character begins as a hostage and transforms into like the face of the revolution is an interesting take, I think.
Yes. So, clearly this was very loosely inspired by the Patty Hearst kidnapping. Mm-hmm. However, I don't think that Patty Hearst was a willing participant in her version of the revolution, which did not come to pass. But during her trial, the prosecution put forth this narrative that she was this bored rich girl who was looking for a good time. And basically it came and it found her. And so even though I don't think that was the case for Patty, who truly was just trying to do what she needed to survive, I was fascinated by the idea of who that girl might be. And she would, be an exceptional person. She's not your everyday teenage girl. She's somebody who has an overabundance of confidence, who really feels like she can do anything. She doesn't think about the consequences of her actions. And she's so self-assured that it becomes literally dangerous.
Well, the idea that there is a political awakening at the other end of something that's essentially a media stunt is that's a fascinating take. The reflection on the political awakening, not just the reflection on media and glamour and violence here, I mean, it's interesting to me that you took this political stance as the reason for change in the book. I mean,
Mhm.
are you reflecting on the world today?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I should also say that I started this book in the summer of 2016. So I had some idea of how this book was going to be received and the world into which it was going to be received. And then within like months of starting the book, weeks really, like that all changed. And then it continued to change. And so that's something that I felt really conscious of and self-conscious of at times, just being like, okay, well, with this new event that has cropped up, with this new shift in our political reality, like, how is this book going to be interpreted? And what kind of stance do I want to take? And it just, like, literature has so many benefits, but it is not a great medium for responding quickly to things that are happening in the world. It's a slow process. Writing is slow, publishing is slow, reading is slow often. And so I kind of had to make peace with the fact that this story could not necessarily directly engage with things that were happening in real time, but it had to be about these four people who all had different ideas about appropriate political action, about the role of violence in politics, and just a political philosophy in general, and to show what they are willing to do and what they are not willing to do, and to allow the reader to make their own decisions about whether or not that's justified.
Hmm. So the idea of discovering your own sense of agency as a character, they all had different paths to do that. There's a fair amount of manipulation, of course, in this because of the fact that they came together in a extremely coercive hostage situation. Yet, how do you turn that? And then the self reinvention that goes on. It's a very interesting arc.
Yeah, and I think it's not meant to be totally clear. So not only should the reader have questions throughout the book about the extent to which, one, Severine is dedicated to the cause, and the extent to which she has been maybe brainwashed, the extent to which she has her own motivations for doing this. But also the characters in the book have these questions about each other. And then, of course, there's questions about whether their relationships, the friendships that they develop are appropriate, if they in and of themselves are genuine, if they can be real within this, as you said, highly coercive context of a kidnapping. So not only are the characters grappling with this throughout the book, but the readers should be too. There's not really an easy answer.
I think it's fantastic. Let me do a little sum up here because that's my prerogative as the guy who's asking all the questions. We have a very interesting bit of summer reads here with the Bombshell, which I think, revolution and revolutionizing. We have a very interesting summer read opportunity, I think, here with Awaken the Floating City in terms of the unexpected connection. And I'd like to suggest that, Andy, we've got With Last Ferry out. I mean, it's not a meditation on grief. It's a hell of an adventure. But at the same time, where do we capture our own moments in that grief, and so we don't unravel? I think I got it right for the three of you. Okay, cool. Now, what I want to be able to do is wrap up today and ask you a little bit about libraries, because it is EveryLibrary, the Political Action Committee for Libraries. I need to put the thing up on the screen again. If people are looking to, you stumbled on this, you saw it on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, you're like, what's the algorithm serving me up today? I'm lucky to meet these authors, but who's that guy? John Kraska, EveryLibrary, Political Action Committee for Libraries. We always do our EveryLibrary Lives with a little bit about libraries, besides the wonderful writing, the process of being a writer. It's summer reads. I need to ask you for your best summer reading story from libraries. If you were like a kid like me who did the summer reading, like you got the passport, you got all the stamps, you read the books, you got the pizza party at the end. I mean, if you were a nerd like me, or maybe just like your favorite summer read that you got out of the library. I mean, Andy, do you mind going first?
Yeah, absolutely. I was definitely the nerd who read probably more over the summer than in school because I didn't have those pesky classes to get in the way
Yeah,
of my
right.
reading. As you
Yeah,
know, I remember winning, if you read a certain number of books, you got a free ticket to Six Flags, which is a pretty good prize,
that's a
actually.
great prize. Wow.
So that was something we did every year. But no, we had a weekly, my mom would drive us to the library and just like kind of drop us there. And then I suppose she was off finding adult books. I didn't care because I ran to the sort of turnstiles, the turny rack
Yep.
of the spinning rack, there we go, of paperbacks. And this is where I just would tear through a series. So I did like as much Babysitter's Club as I could do. And then I discovered Goosebumps and I read every Goosebumps I could get my hands on, and then moved on to, the Fear Street and Christopher Pike, and it sort of makes sense. I quickly found the scary stuff and really homed in.
Yeah, but the Babysitter Club Goosebumps intersection point, that's a hell of a Venn diagram, I would think, professionally for you. Yeah.
I would say so, but my favorite Babysitter's Club ones were the Babysitter's Club. I think there was like Super Chillers, and then there was like Mysteries. So they had ones that had some of those elements, and like those are the ones that I asked for my birthday and also got. But yeah, we had a basket in the living room, and every week it was, we'd dump, my sister and I would dump all of our new books there, read them during the week, and then scoop them back up and replace them every week. So I was practically living at the library as a kid, and I loved it.
Oh, that's so great. I'm so glad. So Six Flags. I mean, Susanna, did you have a perk like that too?
No, not that I remember.
I never got one either like that. That's a heck of a perk.
I mean, the prize I remember the most was, I think, a bookmark that I then got to use for the rest of the year. But I also remember a prize being, you could pick one of 5 free books to take home with you. And that was such an exciting thing to work towards for a season, even though I was getting all my books from the library for free and there were infinite books. So I don't know if it makes us, it was a book to keep.
Yeah.
But I think that's definitely where I learned how to start logging my reading. So I have this memory of this like sheet of paper in my penciled handwriting and then flipping it over and like hoping to need another sheet, but I don't think I did at that point. But it was a really fun challenge, and yeah, just kind of mixed up how I experienced the library since I was there all the time anyway.
I love it. Are you a log the number of books, log the number of pages, or log the number of words kind of reader?
It was books. It was book titles for sure.
Yeah, that's excellent. So, yeah, the Six Flags ticket, the bookmark. Darrow, what do you have in your summer reading memories?
Pizza Hut pizza party.
You did it. Oh man, I didn't live in that town. Dang.
Yeah, it was amazing, and also it was a little exclusive, which really upped the ante for me. So I was desperate to get a place at this Pizza Hut pizza party, because I think it was our first grade teacher who was taking only maybe 3 students. Yeah, and so I was like, well, I need to get a seat. And so I worked really hard to get, one of like the top number of books. And it was a great challenge because it was something that I would have been doing anyway that summer. And then I got rewarded for it. And I did. I got to go with like 2 other students to the Pizza Hut with my first grade teacher. And she gave each of us a book that she thought that we would enjoy. And she gave me Hob and the Goblins by William Mayne, which I think is out of print. He was kind of it's dark. He ended up being a disgraced writer, but this book is like so beautiful. And it is still like a really cherished memory that I have of just spending this time with my teacher and feeling recognized in this way.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great. And you were too young for the salad bar though.
Yeah, not just the salad bar, like stuffed crust only.
Such a great salad bar. It really is. That's fantastic. All right, you've all been absolutely wonderful people to spend some time with me. I want to put up on the screen one thing for our watchers and our readers. We do tell a lot of stories about libraries in summer. Summer learning, summer reading, summer hanging out, opportunities at our Medium website, our Medium stories, EveryLibrary/summer. If you want to be able to share those on social, if you want to contribute to those for us, we want to be able to tell these great moments in your life at libraries too. So, all right, let me take us out today. Andy, thank you for spending time with us talking about The Last Ferry Out.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm like, no, hold the book up a little bit longer. We didn't see it earlier, did we?
There
Perfect.
it is.
Thank you for that.
Backwards, maybe.
Yep. Susanna, I trust that you have Awake in the Floating City ready to show this on the screen.
Here it is.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Thank you so much.
So much for having me.
That's a treat. And then Darrow, the Bombshell. Congratulations to both of the debut authors here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's a real treat. Okay, folks, everylibrary.org. Please hit like and share, as they used to say. I'm going to put up the closing thing as we wave goodbye, and then I'm going to talk to you all in the green room for a second. Take care, all.